Good morning again, beloved ones. Turn to someone and tell them, let's see, what shall we tell one another this morning? Huh? I love you? Okay. Well, tell somebody this morning that you love them. I love you. Thank you. I love you. I love you. That's a good one because we never get too old to hear those words, do we? Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be valued and acknowledged, right? No matter how old we are, because you can't outlive the need to feel that love that joins everything and everyone together. So we're grateful and thankful for that love. But you know, beloved ones, as I get older, the older I get, the more I am beginning to see the value of age-honored wisdom. I am. Because after a while, the older you get, you start to learn a few things, right? Hopefully, yes. You start to learn a few. I'm going to get to that part in a minute. But you hope to learn a few things from your experiences, especially the ones that you've had to repeat a few times, right? Those things that we call life lessons. Has anybody here had a few life lessons, right? Those things that you've had to work with and that keep returning for something of your attention. Something is required of you. So you're like, I thought I learned this lesson. And here it is again. See, the quantity and the quality of your life lessons really may depend upon what and how much you actually learn from your experience. The quality and the quantity of your life lessons, because we're going to get some. Some of us have more than others. But the quantity of them, the depths of these life lessons will really depend upon how much you learn from your experiences. Now, sometimes we are indeed doomed to repeat them. We're doomed to repeat them because we have learned very little from them, right? So the universe says, well, I've got to come back around again. Maybe this time they'll have an understanding. There'll be some recognition of what's taking place here. Or sometimes we have to experience them again and at another level because we have learned something from this life lesson, but now we're able to use it as a benefit, not only for ourselves, but it comes back again so that I could use it as a benefit to help others. That's what wisdom is. But now let me share with you what I have learned, what I have experienced. And so sometimes it comes for us as a benefit, so we can deepen that. And then other times, this experience comes around again and again so that it can deepen our own individual understanding of whatever the lesson is so that it can take us to a new level in consciousness. I want to deepen my experience. Sometimes when I say, well, I thought I learned this lesson, but there's a deeper level. There's a depth to it that I needed to have to experience it again, but now at a deeper level, which means my consciousness can expand and grow, right? And so it's very valuable. But either way, whether it's because it's a benefit for you or it's a lesson that you have not learned but need to learn or it's a deepening of your learning, whatever it is, we like to say that there is a lesson and a blessing in every experience. Right? Whatever it is, it's come to teach you, and it's come to bless you. It may come to wake you up, right, to stir up some things, but there's a lesson and a blessing in every experience. And I thought, if I could just hit each experience by get into the habit of asking myself, well, what is the lesson here? If I could just kind of bring that to my conscious mind, I might not have to repeat it at the depth that I do unless it's something that's going to be utilized. But there's a lesson and a blessing in every experience. And even if you have to look for it, because sometimes you have to look for, okay, God, now what is the lesson here? And where is this blessing? So sometimes we have to look a little deeper for it, but it is there. It might not be the blessing that you think it should be, but it taught you something. It gave you an insight, right? And so we have to understand that I can get this wisdom through aging, through growth, and that's a good thing, right? The thing about aging is that I start to amass a certain level of wisdom from my learned experiences and learned behaviors and patterns. And I begin to gain this wisdom, but it's garnered through age, through longevity, through repetition of an experience. And that's okay. But there's another way. There's another way that is quicker, faster, surer, and I would say a little bit better to gain wisdom and understanding. It doesn't always have to come through the hard knocks of experience. And that way, that quicker, better, faster, deeper level of learning and understanding comes through spiritual awareness, spiritual wisdom. This is what Mr. Charles Fillmore says about spiritual wisdom. He says, wisdom is intuitive knowing, spiritual intuition, the voice of God within as the source of our understanding. It's mental action based on the Christ truth within. Wisdom includes judgment, discrimination, intuition, and all the departments of mind that come under the head of knowing. Now, this knowing capacity transcends intellectual knowledge. Spiritual discernment always places wisdom above the other faculties of the mind and reveals that knowledge and intelligence are auxiliary to understanding. Now that's deep. What this is saying is that there is a deep, direct knowing capacity within our being. And that this spiritual awareness, this capacity to know transcends intellectual knowledge, right? It transcends that. And it actually transcends a lot of the functions of the mind that we hold up. We need to have intellectual knowledge and understanding, but there is a wisdom that is greater than that. It is a direct knowing, it says, spiritual intuition. So I love that spiritual intuition is not some guessing, it's not a hunch, it's not a what, it is a what? Direct knowing. It's when you know that you know that you know that you know. It's a spiritual revelation, a spiritual illumination of your consciousness. And you can't think your way there. You can't reason your way there. You can't use logic to get there. It's a spiritual happening. And it comes with spiritual judgment and discrimination, meaning ability to see beyond just the seeing out here. It's a seeing with the spiritual perspective, seeing with that spiritual eye. And knowledge and intelligence are all auxiliary to it. It's important, but that's not the most important part. Knowledge is not the most important part. Wisdom is. Somebody said that wisdom is the ability to use knowledge. Right? That's why it's so important. You could have you ever meet people that have a lot of knowledge and don't know how to use it? Right? We call that they ain't got no common sense, right? They got a lot of book knowledge, but they can't get out of a paper bag. So there's a deeper understanding and a deeper knowledge that we are looking for. And it said here that wisdom, spiritual wisdom, was the ability to hear the voice of God. Wouldn't it be nice to hear the voice of God? To hear that voice of God within you and to know that it's the source of your understanding. And wouldn't it be nice to have intuitive knowing so that you don't have to guess? You have intuitive knowing as a guide for your everyday decision making. Because we have choices to make every day. Should I drive to church this way or take this road or follow my habitual pattern, or am I going to do something new? We have choices we are making constantly. And wouldn't it be fabulous and great to be able to have intuitive knowing as our guide for any kind of decision making that we would have throughout the course of a day? And wouldn't you want to have the capacity to transcend intellectual knowing or book smarts? Because what if, you didn't go to college or you don't have 15 degrees? Wouldn't it be nice to know you have a capacity within you to transcend intellectual knowing? And I'm not poo-pooing it because it serves a purpose, but we just have to get the priorities straight. You just got to get the order straight. But wouldn't it be nice if you could somehow transcend intellectual knowing so that you're able to tap into a deeper understanding without having the book smarts? I loved my grandmother because she was such a wise woman. She did not go to college. She did not take any formal learning. But the wisdom that she contained and would share with anybody who would listen was profound. Because we all knew that she got her stuff straight from the source. And so when she gave you a directive, or when she had an insight and she shared it with you, you might be wondering, well, how does she know that and where did she get that? Don't worry about all that. Listen and heed, because she never guided you wrong. See, it had nothing to do with she could transcend what? Intellectual knowledge. And she had a knowing that came direct from source. That's powerful. And we all can have that. We all can have that through our inner wisdom and through the divine faculty and the power of wisdom. Wisdom is one of our 12 powers, right? So we have that ability. And wisdom, as I read in the scripture earlier, it is valuable. It's more precious, it says, than gold and silver, more precious than all of those things. From Proverbs 4, it says this about wisdom. It says, wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. And with all thy getting, get understanding. See, what we think sometimes is if I could just get the thing, I'll have it. But the thing may fade away. The power comes in understanding how to get the thing, not necessarily what the thing is, right? You can feed a man a fish and you will feed him for what? A day. But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. It is the how, it is the understanding underneath the thing that is lasting. Which is why, I always say as metaphysicians, Mr. Filmer used to say as a metaphysician, you want to get to the idea in back of the thing. Because the divine idea in back of the thing is what is eternal, is what is powerful. Because when the thing fades and when the thing goes, or when you lose your good thing, you have the idea that can produce it again. If this thing, this pulpit, is destroyed in its manifested form, that's all right. If I have the idea of how it was made, I can do what? Produce it again. It's the wisdom, it's the understanding that contains the power, not the thing itself. So with all thy getting, get wisdom. You see, get that formula. People say, well, I want the magic formula. Well, the magic formula is wisdom. Get that thing, get that wisdom in all of your getting. Because if you know what's going on all around you, and if you know which direction that you need to take, which decision to make, which path to walk upon, then you'll have a clear understanding of what is. If you have all of that, if you know what's going on, you don't have your head stuck in the sand, and you know which way to go and what actions you need to take, you're ahead of the game. You're already ahead of the game. It's those who are clueless, right? What do I do, and where do I go, and what's happening to me? Oh, well, when you know that you know that you know, when you're clear, when you have a direction, you have the decision, you have the proclamation that's in front of you through your own internal GPS system that's guiding you. Go this way, go that way, turn left, right? And then you could even have it, my little Siri thing, whenever I turned left, she would say, recalculating, like, what didn't you hear about what I said to go over here? Recalculating. And thank God we get recalculating signals. Not that way. I told you to go this way. And we have that. So when we do it, our lives are made easier when we can tune into this internal GPS system, this God positioning and programming system, this guidance from within. It's very powerful. Because what will happen is our lives will become easier. Right? What will happen is we'll make less mistakes or take less missteps when you know this is the way. As the Bible says, this is the way, walk ye in it. When you know there's less mistakes that you might make, less time wasted on the wrong stuff, right? Because many of us have spent a lot of time worrying and wasted on the wrong things, right? So it's easier. There's less misunderstanding when your understanding comes from deep within. And so this is a great understanding of this gift that we have, this getting of this wisdom thing. And we don't have to wait until we grow in age to access it. Because even though that's fine, we will have that, but we can access it from within, no matter what age we may be. That's the beautiful gift. Charles Fillmore continues on in speaking further, and he clarifies now wisdom and divine understanding. And he says this: wisdom and divine understanding. These attributes come from the Spirit of Christ within us. The price that we must pay for the conscious attainment of divine wisdom and understanding is the letting go of the personal self with its limited beliefs. Paul saw the Christ waiting at the door of every soul when he wrote this: awake, thou that sleepest, and arise from the dead, and Christ shall shine upon thee. There's something Paul's saying, look, wake up, you that are sleeping and are dead to the truth. If you wake up, then the Spirit of the living God will shine to you and through you and upon your path, upon your life, upon your journey. But the key phrase here in this reading that I focused on was the fact that we want that, but he says there's a price to pay. Says the price that we must pay for the conscious attainment of divine wisdom. See, divine wisdom is present right here and right now. But we want the what? Conscious attainment of it. Right? Because what good is it having wisdom and downloads if you don't even recognize that it's a download? Or you don't know that it's wisdom being given? So he says, but there's a price to pay for this conscious attainment of wisdom and understanding, and that is the letting go of the personal self with its limited beliefs. And when I read that, I said, oh no, not the personal self. I like the personal self. It's who I think I am, right? It's my persona. It's the images I have. It's the masks I wear. It's the roles I put on that I believe make me who I am. I'm the minister. I'm the doctor. I'm the lawyer. I'm the mother. I'm the father. I'm the child. I'm this. I'm that. Wait a minute. I have to give that up? I don't believe it's talking about, although I think there are times we have to give up this outer facade. But I think what is being asked for us to be able to give up, perhaps, is some things. It might mean that you have to give up, let's say, the need to be right. Because when you are in your persona, when you have identified with your role, you kind of think sometimes you're an expert then, right? And so you might have to give up this need to be right all the time. Or maybe as you put on this persona and this role, you might have to give up thinking and feeling like you know it all. Right? Based on your research and your study and your degrees and your intelligence. And, look, I know. I've got 3 masters and a couple of PhDs. I know, right? You might have to give that up for divine wisdom. Or you might have to admit that you might even have some limited beliefs. You might have to admit that there are assumptions that you live by that may or may not even be true. But they are assumptions that you believe them to be true and you live your life by them, which means they may or may not be true. Or maybe there are perceptions that you are holding that are distorted by your past experiences. Because this happened this way when I did this, therefore I'm not going to do that because my perception says to do it would be wrong, which may or may not be true. Yes, there are things that we can learn from. Your perceptions from a past experience can teach you something, but it doesn't mean that everything now is guided by that past expression because something new may have entered into the equation. Right? So we don't throw it all out and say, well, yeah, I did this and it didn't work, so I'm not doing that ever again. It might be that, yeah, it didn't work, but this is a new dynamic. Now try this on. Perhaps this will take. So we get caught up in all of these perceptions. Or it may be an opinion that you have that's based on something that you've never experienced. Come on now. We all have opinions about things that we know nothing about. Let's be honest, right? You haven't had the experience. Now, that does not mean that you always have to have the experience of something to figure out that it's for you or not for you, right? Sometimes I could look, if I see the ravages of substance abuse and drug abuse, I could look at that and say, well, that's an experience I don't have to recognize that that is not for me. So, yes, we have opinions that we don't necessarily experience, but you have to be able to discern. Is it something maybe not that devastating and saying, I don't want that, but stuff that you just make up? You just look at it and you just say, because I'm looking at what's happening, in the world when they do all these interviews with people, and it's just opinions that they have, and they have no experience. It's something they heard, and so they said, yes, this is happening because of this, and they're lumping whole groups of people. And how do you know? Do you know if everybody in that group or in that expression is functioning that way? But it's an assumption. It's an opinion, and they're gonna ride it out, right? This is the way I see it, and doggone it, I'm gonna have this until I leave here. Okay. And so we have to understand the difference between when do you need to give it up and when do you need to let it go and when do you need to open up. Because what will happen is if you want conscious attainment of wisdom, of divine wisdom, you're going to have to give up some things about what you think you know. You're going to have to give up some things of which you have a tighter grip on because you might have to trust. You might just have to trust and access something higher than your own limited self. You might have to trust something higher than your own understanding. The Bible also says, lean not unto your own understanding. Now, great understanding has value. But if you cannot also be open to another level, another depth, another source for your understanding, you become narrow-minded, just boxed in, and all of a sudden, you're limited. Limited in your expression, limited in your exposure, limited in your life's unfolding because you're living out a narrow vision. So we have to understand, well, what is it? Is there something in me that is greater than me? Is there something in me that is greater than my intellectual knowledge, my opinions, and my beliefs? And yes, there is. It's divine wisdom. Divine wisdom is greater than all of that. It is direct knowing. And it is a direct knowing which can and does bypass your mind. It bypasses your thoughts. It bypasses your beliefs. It bypasses your reasoning. It's beyond your reasoning and your ability to know a thing through the mind. It bypasses. Divine wisdom has nothing to do with any of that. It is higher than that. It comes direct from the source, direct from God. It's a revelation, and not like, oh, I've had an epiphany. It's something even deeper than that. And this divine wisdom, it will arise in us. It arises in you. See, you can't think of it. This is the whole thing. You can't think of divine wisdom. It's a happening. Divine wisdom arises. Divine wisdom, it comes, and it will arise in your awareness if you're open to it, if you are teachable, if you are receptive, if you are unquestioning, if you are practiced and familiar in listening to it, and practiced in acting upon it. See, very often divine wisdom presents itself to us, but then we allow our questioning mind to take over. We allow our doubts. We allow the mind to get in the way, killing off whatever wisdom it was that presented itself to us. Last night, I was working on my talk for this morning, and it was about 11:44, 11:45, midnight. And very often I work late and I get up early, okay, to continue to work on the talk. So I was working on the talk, and it was about 11:44, because I looked at the clock and it said 11:44. And I kept hearing this noise, right? And it was like a vibration and a boom, and a boom, and a boom. Now, I live in a townhouse, and it's a corner townhouse. So most of the house doesn't have a side to it, but the bedroom sides are attached to the other townhouse. And I kept hearing this lately. I've been hearing this thumping and this noise, and it sounded like my neighbor's TV or some music that was coming from my neighbor. Now, usually my neighbor's very, very quiet, very lovely man, respectful and all that. But I've noticed that his cousin, who was much younger, a younger guy, I'd been seeing him around and whatever, and he had lived there once before. And I know that, he likes to get his groove on and his party on or whatever. And so, automatically, it was annoying because I'm trying to concentrate. It's almost midnight. I'm working on the talk. I'm deep in the process. I want to really get it. And I'm hearing this boom, 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 boom. But I'm like, what the heck is that? And why would he be playing the music so loud at 11:44? It's midnight. I know he's young, blah, 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 blah. And I don't want to say anything to my neighbor because he's so good to me, blah, blah. So I got up and I'm fussing. So I leave my place where I'm writing, and I decide I'm going to go into the hallway to see if I could hear it in the hallway, and to see whether or not it was so loud that my mother could hear it, and whether she was being disturbed by it, or whether she could hear it in her bathroom. So I went into the hallway. I didn't hear it. I moved near her door. She couldn't hear it there. I said, okay, that's not been. I went into her bathroom. It's not. I said, wow. So I go back into my room, and there it is. Right? Now, when I was in the hallway, I had a prompting to go downstairs. Something said go downstairs, but I was like, no, it's midnight. I ain't going downstairs. So I go back into my room, and I'm trying to continue to work, but I'm getting annoyed. And then finally, I still hear this thumping, and so my spirit says, well, go downstairs and see if they're playing it from their basement and it's coming up and I could hear it. So I get up and I go downstairs. And I'm fussing all the time still about this young boy who's disturbing my peace and blah, 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 blah. But as I go down the stairs, the sound is getting louder. And then I'm like, uh-oh. And it sounds like somebody's in my family room or my kitchen. And I'm like, oh, and I knew immediately what it was. And I go down there and I'm like, oh my goodness. It was my radio that had turned itself. Now, you have to know this. My radio down there and my TV turned themselves on. They do at different points in times. Don't ask me. I don't get flustered. I don't, get spooked about it. It's just something that happens. And for some reason, because I did not go to bed with the radio blasting. So I go and I turned it up and I started laughing. And I had to laugh because what? I was so sure that it was this young boy, right, post thing. I took him through the ringer. But then I had to laugh and I said, you're writing about wisdom. And when I was in the hallway the first time, I got the prompting to do what? Go downstairs. But I was like, I ain't going downstairs. No. I ignored it, and I come back, and then it's so loud, then I say, well, let me go and see. Then I finally answer it. See, the wisdom, the prompting, the leading, and the guidance was there. Go on downstairs. But I said, no, too much, can't be. What's down there? No. But even when it was happening, it registered in my spirit that it was coming from down there. And I just kind of I felt it. I looked down the stairs, and I just could feel the energy. This is it. But no. Go back into the bedroom. And I suffer a little bit more until I'm frustrated. Let me go down here and see it was coming from the basement. But Spirit wanted me to see what? It was coming from the radio. And so I had to laugh. The point is that I was guided and directed. How often are we guided and directed, but we miss the cues because we let the mind rationale? I was like, oh, no, I don't know. It couldn't be anything down there, blah, 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 blah. And I know my TV likes to turn itself on, and the radio, too, from time to time. And not just softly either, because it's not on a particular station, so sometimes it's like static. And it's like, and I'm like, whoa, what is this poltergeist? I don't know. Now, I'm only kidding because there's only one presence and one power that it resists in my life. So, I'm never afraid. My mother and I laugh because stuff happens in my house. And I always tell, don't worry about it. It's just Spirit getting our attention. But how often do we have preconceived notions and opinions and beliefs about and assumptions about what's happening when it's not that at all? See, the divine is always guiding and directing us, but whether or not we hear it is up to us. So what do you think or believe that you know? See, I thought I knew the source. The source was this young man playing music at midnight, right? What are your assumptions that you are carrying around about what's taking place? What are your perceptions and where are they coming from? Are they coming from your past experiences or are they coming from real inner guidance? And how do you distinguish between what is inner guidance and what is really coming from your own consciousness, your own rational mind? And if you do get a strong prompting, or what I call an internal hit, an inner prompting, right? An intuitive knowing, do you act upon it? Do you act upon it or do you question it? Do you act upon it or do you question it? I went to see the movie Harriet yesterday, and it was a wonderful line in the movie that I really loved. And Harriet was unable to read. She could not read, she could not write, but she had a wisdom that came from nowhere else except from God, right? She had a wisdom, and she had attuned her spirit and herself to listening for this guidance and listening for this wisdom, and she trusted it, and she knew that it was guiding and directing her, and that it was coming straight from God, so that she knew God was going to get her through her journey, that God was traveling with her on her path, the path to freedom, the path to life. And she would very often just stop and listen and wait for that direction to go here and there, right? Don't forget, this woman traveled hundreds of miles through woods on foot from Maryland to Philadelphia and to Canada, okay? Now, I know I couldn't get around the corner. If I had to, you put me in the woods, I'd be like, what? Right? But she would stop and she would listen. She would, she would attune her head. She would say, because she was teachable. She was open and receptive to it. And when she was first settling out, God told me, he said, don't be fearful on your journey. And so she just began to listen. She would stop. She would pray. She would listen at a moment's notice. She'd be walking with them, and then she'd, oh, hey, buddy. And then she would get down there, and she would be listening. They'd all be like, but it was this ability to hear that still small voice for her guidance. The ability for her to stop at a moment. That's because I normally go this way. I usually walk by this tree. But today in this moment, Spirit is saying, don't go there. I need to go over here. And she would do it. And so when she was back in Philadelphia, one of her friends was asking her, because she was famous now for these moments of which she'd get these downloads about what to do and how to walk and how to travel. So this woman was asking her, how did her, this guidance come to her? What was it like and everything? And she tried to explain. Sometimes it's a vision, sometimes it's soft. But what she said was this. She said, well, you know what? Most times, before I have time to question, I act. And I thought, that's it right there. Before she had time to question, she did what? She acted. See, she didn't have time to question every little thing that came to her. She didn't have time to mull over, well, now, should I go to this? She could hear dogs and hunting dogs in the background. She couldn't sit there and say, left or right? Let's see. Bam, she moved. When she was prompted to go, she went. When she was prompted to stop, she stopped. Left, right, didn't matter. She went with the Spirit, and she didn't use her mind to think about it. She let her inner knowing be her guide and her direction. And very often, if we have to admit, we wouldn't get past 2 blocks if we had to go someplace purely on our ability to know, because we let the mind get in the way, right? We let our thoughts, our opinions, our preconceived notions get in the way of what we did before. I've traveled this road before. I should go this way. But today, no, go this way, Spirit said. And without a moment's hesitation, she was off in that direction. Right? So this is Spirit's guidance that comes to us is to be acted upon. Not thought about, not analyzed, not put through the mental running of our minds, but to be acted upon, because your mind's going to get in the way and hang you up. It's going to give you reasons you got to start justifying, right? And coming up with, well, I should, Spirit's guidance is to be acted upon. You have to move when the Spirit says move. That's what that song we used to sing. I got to move when the Spirit says move. I got to sit when the Spirit says sit. I got to pray when the Spirit says pray. I'm going to act when the Spirit says act. I'm going to do when the Spirit says do. I'm going to be still when the Spirit says be still. I love that. One of my favorite quotes from Bruce Lee, who was a master, he was a master metaphysician, not just a martial arts expert, but he did everything through his understanding of mind, body, and spirit, all were integrated at a high capacity for him. He did something that other people could not do, and they could say, wow. And he used to train people, not just in the physical, he trained them here and here. And this is what he said. He said this. He said, knowing is not enough, we must apply. Willing is not enough, we must do. And I've used that quote for myself often. Knowing is not enough. Well, good, divine wisdom is great. You know, but then you don't do. You know, but you don't apply. That whole statement that says if you knew better, you'd do better, that's not true. Sometimes you know better and you still don't do better. Let's be honest, right? Knowing is not enough. We must apply. Knowing this truth is not going to help you. Apply it to your life. Being willing is not enough. You must do. Right? That's what keeps things going. Because what is getting divine direct download if you don't act upon it? Dreams are deferred. Right? Desires are delayed. Wishes are wasted. So what is God prompting you to do right now? What is the path to freedom that you're being called to travel upon? What's being laid out before you? What guidance are you seeking? And then what answers are being provided? Because sometimes you get the answer, but you don't like it. Right? So what guidance are you seeking? And then what answers are you being given? Are you teachable? Are you trusting in the divine wisdom? Can you hear this still small voice within? Do you honor it? Are you moving with it upon its direction and its guidance? Life's lessons are showing up for you. And are you getting the message? What life lessons are you receiving, the lesson and the blessing? People always want formulas. Here's the formula. Stop, look within, listen within, and then move. Stop, look, listen, move. Let me hear you from that. What? Stop, look, listen, move. That's what we got to do, right? Don't worry about, oh, what should I do? Stop, look, listen, and move. Not analyze, research, question. You could do that after you're in the process of moving towards your good. Right? You shall know the truth and apply the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Look for the lesson and the blessings, my dear ones, and then move onward and upward. That's the path to freedom, to truth. Wisdom is the principal thing. With all of thy getting, get some wisdom and understanding. Namaste and blessings. Blessings.